This is Twisted Passages with award-winning author Marie Sutro. Now, let's take a deep dive into the dark world of psychological thrillers and meet the authors who created them.
Hello, and welcome to Twisted Passages. I'm your host, Marie Sutro, and today we have #1 New York Times and Edgar award-winning author of over 33 books, Lisa Scottoline, here to talk about her new release, The Unraveling of Julia. Welcome, Lisa.
That was so suspenseful. I can see. Oh my God, who's there?
Well, come on. I read your book. What other choice do I have than to be filled with suspense? Can you start us off with a quick overview of what the book's about?
The book is about a young woman named Julia who inherits a lot of money from someone in Tuscany who's a complete and total stranger. The thing is that Julia's an adoptee and she doesn't know anything about her birth family. So she thinks, wow, I wonder if I'm related to this person. And she goes to Tuscany and unraveling ensues. That's what happens.
A lot of unraveling. Serious unraveling. I was unraveling while I was reading about Julia.
I'm unusually unraveling. So I have much in common with Julia here.
Now, I have to say, your opening scene was so heart-stopping. I think it was 3/4 of the way through it. I realized I was holding my breath.
Aww.
What made you decide to come out of the gates that hard with this story?
Well, you know what's crazy, and I haven't really talked about this much, but what started this whole story off was that 40 years ago, somebody bought me a session with a channeler, which is a person who can see your spirit guides. And I was like, what's a spirit guide? I didn't believe it. I thought it was kind of BS-y. And then when I got there, this woman looked me in the eye and said, you are not doing what your soul wants to do. Your soul wants you to be a storyteller and you should start writing. And meanwhile, I secretly felt that way. I never told anyone. And it resonated in me. Like, and as soon as that happened, I was like, oh my God. Like I walked in a total skeptic and I walked out a complete believer. Right? And I've looked out in times in my life where I felt, oh, that was a little premonition you had there, or something was communicating something to you. And so that's what really happens in the first chapter. And we're not giving anything away because it's the first page. Julie is walking down the street with her beloved husband in Philadelphia, a place I know pretty well, because you can tell by how I talk. And she gets a really bad feeling, a premonition that something bad is about to happen. And the next thing that happens is someone comes around the corner and there's a mugging and her husband is killed right in front of her. Oh, you're such a sweet. I see your little eyebrows go down. I was like, oh my God. Because I don't write with an outline. So I was like, well, that's interesting. Now what would happen? And so really there's a couple of levels to the story. And the first one is that she feels it first. And then the rest of the book has to figure out what was that about? And does it relate to this inheritance?
And that's one of the fun things about psychological thrillers is we play with those characters the same way that life kind of plays with us, right? Because
exactly.
We do have those moments. I've been in traffic sometimes and the light turns green and something just says, well, don't go yet. And then all of a sudden a car that would have smacked you, right? I think that's a question. Even the skeptics are always wondering, well, what exactly is that?
Right. And then when there's some undeniable stuff that happens, and that starts to happen to Julia. Now, what she finds out when she goes to Tuscany is maybe this person who might have been a grandmother is kind of obsessed and believes that she herself is a descendant of Caterina Sforza, who is a character I really loved and kind of knew about. She was the only woman ruler during the Renaissance, and she took on the Borgias and she ruled a town. And she even outwitted Machiavelli, which of course she gets no credit for any of this. And I was like, well, if you're going to imagine you're somebody, like imagine you're somebody cool like that, I'm like some schlub, you're going to be like Caterina. So the grandmother believes that she might be related. And then Julia starts to believe it. And you go, is she channeling Caterina Sforza, or is she really descended from her? Do they share blood? Or it's just, I love your twisted passages and stuff. Is it really just twisting what is going on here? And she's got to kind of figure that out.
And she, in fairness, is in this post-traumatic state,
Right.
having just witnessed something that is absolutely horrible that she'll truly never recover from.
Right.
And so that just adds to the question of, is she an unreliable narrator, you know?
And yeah, I like that. Not that I like it, but when I started to write it, because I thought, you write everything at a point in time. And I think our times, and this is not political, because I think people, whether you're the red team or the blue team, feel this way. There's a lot going on. There's a lot, as my daughter says. And especially if you're writing about crime, you're necessarily writing about justice and law. And that stuff's up for grabs. More accurately, it's in terrible turmoil. Whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, you don't think there's a lot of justice going around right now. And we have a lot of anxiety because of that. We're, our rates of alcoholism and drug abuse and sadly suicide, people are more stressed. So I was like, well, that would be your character. It's hard to write a character that's complete peace of mind when frankly, I don't. Right?
And none of us do.
None of us do. And honestly, it wouldn't speak to anybody. I'm going to write somebody who has all the answers right now. Because to me, I always think a little bit like, wow, if you're going to spend like 350 pages with somebody, you're going to be their friend. Do you want to hang around with somebody that's real sure of themselves right now? I don't. Like, they're in denial. If you think everything's great, you're out of your mind. And I also want to play with concepts like out of your mind. I hear myself a lot of times go, well, that's crazy. Well, we need to really rethink that kind of thinking. What is crazy? That is a pejorative. We have so much mental illness and instability. When does that shade into crazy? It's just really a kind of a crappy thing to be in our lexicon. And in mine too, I'm trying to get out of that. And that's all that stuff Julia is struggling with. She goes, wow, I've been calling people crazy for years, or that idea is crazy. Now, am I crazy? That's a scary thing to think. And I think when you have post-traumatic stress, the research that I've done show me that that's also very common. And those of us who have lost people, and we get to be old like me, when you're in grief, there's an instability that is soul level. You think your actions are normal, you think you're functioning, and then you realize you put your wallet in the refrigerator and you didn't even know how that happened. And that kind of stuff happens, and it's very hard to explain. So I kind of wanted to write into that storm and have a character be in that position so she would feel like we all kind of feel. I hope it worked, but that was my goal.
It absolutely worked. And Julia is so spectacular for so many reasons. One of those is that she truly has no shame in her game. She is willing to tell people, hey, you know what I believe right now just happened to me? And I love that about her. And I wonder, would she have been that way before her husband passed? And one of the characters makes a comment to her that was utterly brilliant. The one thing about a heartbreaking is that now it's open.
Thank you for saying that. I thought of that. You try to say something that you hope you have an insight if you think and think and think, and then take a lot of showers. And I was like, there is something to that. There is something to that. And I think also part of it was like my own honest discomfort. I mean, here's a character who believes that she might be clairvoyant. Well, you can't hedge that bet. And she's trying to figure it out in real time. And partly you go, religion, people have religious visions, which I was a bad Catholic, but I was taught this stuff. Oh, God spoke to you? Oh, well, that's normal. Is God speaking to her? Who's speaking to her? And then when you start to talk to, and I did the research, and I remembered even that channeler that day. I said to her, how do you know this? And there were diplomas on her walls. I mean, she's a hypnotist. She's all these certifications. Part of her business is hypnotizing people to stop smoking. She says, I can hypnotize you to eat less, or to eat healthy, or to exercise. I'm speaking to his element of your subconscious. That is possible. We all accept that's true. As I say, these experiences I had as I started to live my life. I mean, it's a sad one. I'll tell it briefly, but I was very close to my dad, and I was there in the hospital when he passed. And we were kind of surprised because he was in remission. And I was like, this isn't good. All of a sudden, something started to be really bad. And then he did that thing just in the hospitals. They code, people rush in. I'm like, oh no, this is like catastrophic. I think my dad's going to die right now. And he did, which if I say what is the worst thing that ever happened to me, that would be it. I can tell that story completely normal. And I'm a big crybaby. I cry all the time. I didn't cry in that moment either. You know why? Because as soon as it happened, I was looking right at him. I was right there holding his hand, and I felt Suffused. That's the verb that came to my head. I was suffused with good feeling. Now that sounds nuts or uncaring. Did you have an experience like that?
The world is kind of slowing on its spin right now for me, Lisa, because my father passed in a very similar way with, it was cancer, and we thought certain things and we thought treatable, if not curable. And then
Right.
there was this shock level to the immediacy of it when it happened that
Right.
was beyond anything I can describe. But what you're talking about, I totally get it, because for as horrific as it is and as horrible, and as much as it does feel like someone is literally tearing both sides of you apart, there is something in that, a piece in that. And for me, I thought, wow, and he was the first really, really close person to me to pass.
Me too.
And I thought, when that happens, it's going to be like a light going out and I'm going to feel disconnected from him. And for as horrible as it was, and like crybaby all over here, that moment and how I felt since, as bad as it's been not to call him or see him or hug him,
Right.
I don't feel like his light went out. And
I know. And I was like, I just knew it. And I wasn't thinking, I mean, this is 20 years, 30 years after this channel. It wasn't in my mind. That's why when something happens to you, you can't deny it. And I was like, I said, he's protecting me right now. He's protecting me from this pain. He's telling me it's okay. It persisted for about half an hour when all the stuff happened and we had to say, don't do this. And my daughter wasn't there, but my stepmom was there. And it persists to this day. I mean, I have other wacky stories that happened, and that stuff happened. And I think it's our job. I think it's our job as human beings, honestly. But my mother always said, like, be yourself. There's a little of be in touch with what's happening to you. Because the mistakes I've made in my life, and I've made plenty, like I'm divorced twice, I wasn't in touch with what I was feeling. I was like, well, I guess this is a good idea. Let's get married. I was going down that aisle the second time I said to myself, Lisa, did you think this through? You didn't really. I was holding a bouquet. You can't reverse. I was like, maybe I can reverse. No, you can't. So I just will go forward, see what happens. And then, of course, it's a freaking nightmare. But in any event, the unexamined life isn't worth living. Conversely, the examined life is amazing. So when these things started to happen to me, I said, there's more here than we know. And I believe it now. And I've done a lot of readings since then. I've paid more attention to it. It's the inner voice you have in yourself, and also a voice of whatever is talking to you that says you should listen to yourself. It's kind of amazing.
it really is. And the way that you were able to address that with Julia, and again, she has no shame. She's going to tell anybody and anything that she feels that she needs to. And the way that different people respond to that, some are open, some are
Right.
eye open, and some that wall has come down and they are
Right.
looking at her with, like you said, a pejorative term like crazy.
Right.
Because instead of saying, maybe I haven't experienced that, but why don't you tell me about your experience? It's kind of that role of artists. And you mentioned so many amazing Renaissance artists, and you give us Florence, and it's absolutely amazing. And I kept thinking about these wonderful painters or sculptors that you're referencing. And I thought about you and your body of work and what you've brought with your art and how it has stayed with people. I mentioned to you before we started recording what a huge fan I am of yours and how much your work has meant to me throughout my life, not just as a writer, but as a woman, as a human being. And there are those folks like you who see all of these experiences and aren't afraid to not only feel them, but to be honest in your writing and let other people explore them who might be a little more afraid to explore, but because you gave us characters that you said are our friends, we can go with our friends and maybe think about these things and live with it a little bit in a different way.
Oh, that's really kind of you. Thank you so much for saying that. I was listening to you and going, when you think about it, like, what's the purpose of art? Partly this thing, like, she's finding out whether she's a channeler. And when I was writing, I was like, when you think of any superhero stories, any of them, Yoda, Luke, Superman, they're always like in Spider-Man in the beginning, like he's knocking into walls. He doesn't know what his power is. And I thought, in the novel, literally, you're talking about, is she really a medium? But it's also our lives. What's my superpower? Maybe it's just, I don't know, making homemades, or just that I like to hug people. I'm very huggy, whatever. We all have to find what our gifts are and what they're not, and try to know that we can do things that we didn't think we can do. And I think art gives us, it's very kind of you to say, and I appreciate it. And now I'm definitely going to read you, my God. But I think it is a soul to soul connection when you find authors that you vibe with. It is a vibing. It's a, wow, I feel that inside. Like when this channeler said this, you want to be a writer. This is 40 years ago. Okay, this is pre-internet. My friend who was the one who bought the channeling session for me didn't tell her my name. So there's no way she could have looked me up. And what she's trying to tell me literally is that your soul wants to do something that you are ignoring. And you should listen to your soul, which is just a way of saying be yourself. The more we do that, everyone's happier. And when we do that, when you and I are writing, if we like open up our soul and write a book where we really feel what this character's feeling, people will connect with it, I hope, because we're so real about it. And I didn't know how to write about this because, as I say, it can be so woo-woo. And I hope there's people not rolling their eyes at this point. But but you really you go, well, how much are you willing to say, I don't know if this is true? Certainty is kind of overrated. I never feel certain. I'm never certain about it. So it's kind of fun to write about a character like that. At the same time, she's going to really deal with adversity and have to buck up and do it.
You gave us so much suspense. You gave us plot point after plot point where we're, holding on for dear life sometimes. And I cannot discuss this book with you without mentioning the setting. Oh my goodness. You do talk in your author notes about your research, and our next trip next year has got to be to that region, to Tuscany, because I have to go to how I'll stop and getting on a plane right now.
It is magical. It is incredible. The food's amazing. The Chianti is amazing. All the stuff she experiences. Although in this book, I was like, you know what? Turn it on its head a little. Make it like the cover. I got to have some cover say. And I said, make it dark Tuscany. We know sunny, happy Tuscany. I want to show you the underside a little. When I started to do research and you go, who really harvests these grapes? It's not really a lovely story. So I wanted to sort of use Gothic notes. I just wanted to go in a more suspenseful direction and really get into that territory of crumbling villas. And it was great fun writing, and I hope it's fun to read. That's really all that matters, that it be really entertaining and make you think.
It did all of that, but I think it also created a monster, because folks who own villas in Tuscany, beware, because I will be knocking on your door. I will be checking out your vineyards. I might be digging in your vineyard. You don't know what might be happening.
You just be careful, girl. You'll never know what you find.
Exactly. That place has been around a long time. There's been a lot of people living there. One of the things I did want to ask you about your background and your education in the law. You mentioned briefly that it's very hard right now for anyone, wherever they are, to feel like they can really get justice. Many folks come at that in different ways as authors, but you come at it from a practical standpoint and from a well-educated standpoint. I've loved your legal thrillers, but you also touch on justice here because we have a murder at the beginning. And there's this question of, will there be justice for that? Do you think, from your professional background and having explored this so many ways over the years as an artist and just as a human being, do you think we ever get justice?
Yes, I do. I didn't know what was going to happen going in. And because I was a lawyer and also a law clerk at a state and federal level, I loved the law. I took those oaths. I believe that oath to the Constitution. Like, I'm that nerdy about it. I think it's beautiful. I make a point of always following the law and the procedure. This was a hard one because given that there's crimes in Italy, in Tuscany, and here, which obviously happens all the time, but that jurisdictional problem is a real problem legally. And just administratively, things don't work. You can imagine what that's like. And the research I did proved it to be true. I think of it like as a single mom. When my daughter was little, if she needed to get to see a doctor, I would get her to a doctor. I had no money I was going to get to a doctor. If I didn't like the answer, I was going to get the next answer. We fight, we women, for our kids and for anyone. And what we have to end up doing is advocating for ourselves. And then we see that nowadays. You see with all the true crime podcasts and stuff, how many women, moms, dads solve crimes when the police aren't able to, and it's not their fault. They don't have the budget. They don't have the jurisdiction. It takes them time. They have so many other cases. Well, if it's your kid, you're not going to sit on your hands. And Julia can't sit on her hands. It was her husband and it's her life, and she's going to take it in both hands and learn how to do that. And that's something that I find myself, on one customer service phone calls going, but wait 1 minute. We all have to do it. And I try to make myself do it. And hopefully I become stronger.
Well, you mentioned Julia taking her life in her own hands. And I will say, as a reader who has been able to have you take us in your hand, it has been an absolute joy. And Julia's journey was no different than any of the other journeys I've taken with any of your other characters.
Oh, that's so sweet of you to say. Thank you.
Before I let you go, one quick thing I have to ask about, because we just saw an amazing photo of the glorious Eve on social media. Could you explain a little bit about your love for pups? Because there is a pup in this book, and oh my goodness,
the dog in this book is called a Maremma, which is a dog of Tuscany, and they're a livestock guarding dog. They're huge. I've seen one in person. I wanted one so badly, but sadly, I don't have any livestock to guard. I do have chickens. Generally, they live outside, and I want a dog to make out with me and sleep with me in my bed, which sounds weird, but I've got 2 other Cavalier chickens. I have chickens. I have a pony. I live on a farm. And I feel like in this world, your job is to kind of put love into the atmosphere, and animals help me do that. I feel the love for them, and that relationship is so wonderful and great. I think that wonderful Temple Grandin, her book was called Animals Make Us Human. And I was like, that is exactly right. So my little crazy puppy I have her locked in my bedroom right now so she won't bark during this.
Oh.
I'm going to go spring her as soon as we hang up.
Well, I don't want her to have to stay in lockup too long, but for folks who haven't seen it, absolutely have to go to Lisa's social media, because Eve has it down. I mean, Vogue, everybody's going to want her because she just gives it all to camera and does not hold back.
And she knows it too, that she's our little principessa. She knows that she's quite the professional puppy.
Lisa, there are people all around the globe who adore your work and who won't be able to wait any longer to get this book in their hands. But there's probably going to be more, I'm hoping, or I'll have to knock on your door and ask for it. Assuming nobody has to knock on your door, what is the best place other than knocking on your door that people can find what's coming next?
Well, I am on social media, and it's me only. People go, "Did you have like some conglomerate?" No, it's me posting pictures of my dog. But I like to do that. And there's also videos on my website. So my website's Scottoline.com, and I'm on every social media channel under my name. And you can find the latest on what Eve had for lunch or other earth-shattering news. And also book stuff too.
And I believe, if I heard correctly, that you did share a lot of videos you took when you were researching the book.
You can see the actual location. Like I filmed in the Uffizi Gallery, even though you weren't allowed to. I know, I broke the rules. Little Lisa broke the rules. And that's really cool. I love that stuff as a companion to the book, because you can visualize it, but also there's only so much you can do in a book, especially suspense novels. You can learn a little more. I love that we are lifelong learners when we read. So I like to cater to those people.
Again, I can't thank you enough. The Unraveling of Julia is everything and then some. I just adore this book, and anyone who reads it will too.
Thank you, Marie. This has just been a wonderful conversation. I feel like we're girlfriends now. So
absolutely. And again, I'll try not to knock on your door.
Anytime, girl.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Twisted Passages. We hope to see you next time.